Three, two, one, go.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Force podcast, a podcast from three Puerto Rican friends coming together to do deep dives into Star Wars and other nerd-related media. This is season 1, episode 15, and since there weren't any big news, about Star Wars recently, we decided to invite a guest to help discuss it with us. So, Goose, why don't you introduce us?
Let's welcome to our guest, Alden Díaz from Ahch-To Radio.
How's it going, man? What's going
Hi.
on? Y'all invited me on and we were so excited, and then Disney was like, forget about him. There's more important stuff going on.
There's more important things. I don't know if people remember Nani's appearance at the Geeky Waffle, but she was there with Alden as well. And like we saw there was like some good chemistry and some good conversation that was going on. So we were like, hey, this seems like a fun guy to have over and come have some interesting discussions with us. So welcome.
Yeah, that was definitely fun.
Yeah, that was a fun night.
We did. They're usually fun nights. Mo's gonna be there next week, so that means all three of us have had a evening with all the lovely people. Yeah, all the lovely people of Geeky Waffle. We used to have an original plan for how today's episode was going to be. Obviously, the Investors Day presentation kind of threw not a monkey wrench, but modified our plan somewhat. So we'll see how this conversation goes. We might end up splitting it into 2 episodes. We'll see. It's TBD, so people need to tune in to find out what we're gonna do, because we'll figure it out on the fly. But before going into like our main discussion, let's get to know, as we usually do. Let's get to know our guest a little bit. So Alden, if you don't mind, hey, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? What do you do? What's your background? Why don't we start with that before going into more personal Star Wars questions?
Yeah, sure. So, when my mom met my father,
we can do that too.
Yeah, we can go all the way back to the beginning, like inside the actor studio, like, what is your favorite curse word?
Yes.
So I'm in broadcasting. I'm also Puerto Rican. And so there's that connection between this whole crew now. But then there's but Star Wars has always sort of been like my chief passion and everything. So I don't think I would work in entertainment. I work in radio, producing morning shows and stuff for Miami and things like that. So I don't think I would really be doing anything that I was doing if it wasn't for Star Wars and geek culture overall. So it's always sort of been inherently tied into like who I am and what I do. So it's sort of like everything sort of has to come back to it in a certain way, and everything sort of tracks in that way of, seeing yourself like in these stories and these characters. So everything that I try to do, like with my show or with appearances on other shows, is to go as heady and as deep as possible. I mean, when we were talking off air about like, what are we going to do with this episode? Like, what's the topic going to be? I was like, just give me something really like mental. Like, let's really like, let's like eat it up.
Let's shake the nuggets.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, because it's great. Like when somebody like knows all the facts and the ships and everything like that, or can rattle things off, or we're talking about one event in Star Wars canon, and like that's all really cool. But I love like just sitting around, like what is like the soul of, like, what is the reason why this happened, more so than like what actually happened or like how it worked. So that's sort of like the human being that I am to a certain degree with comics and everything. But I also like really ridiculous stuff like wrestling and things like that. So
it's so funny. It's so funny that you mentioned that, because I think that's actually an interesting way to frame it, because by you framing it that way, it makes me think that that's basically, on a nutshell, obviously it gets more nuanced than that, but like on a nutshell, it's like 2 teams of Star Wars fans that you usually kind of see as like the more fact trivia driven fan. It's just like, exactly, let me figure out the name of each and every blaster that every clone trooper or stormtrooper had, and the other one's just like, okay, but the blaster doesn't matter. It's like, why did they use the blaster? Kind of the literal and the figurative kind of.
It's true.
Obviously, there's some that kind of meet in the middle,
and they have to work together. I mean, I love that Star Wars has both, where there's books on the cross sections and the locations and all that stuff, which is beautiful, and the work that goes into it is incredible. But at the same time, I give a lot of credit to my buddy Ken and my buddy Joseph over on Force Center, and they talk about the why of Star Wars sort of coming out of like Palpatine returning. And like, obviously everyone has an opinion on that movie, but it's not about how Palpatine lived. It's about why does the Sith in this story refuse to let go of life? What does that say about selfishness and that type of stuff? So like my like moral philosophy, like I've joked about it before, but like Star Wars is like my religion. Like I really do like sit around and like contemplate it and stuff. So when you see like Dave Filoni talking about like Qui-Gon, I'm sitting there like, this is a sermon. Like this is like really, I'm like, whoa, like, you know, rapidly takes notes and stuff. So
Yep.
yeah.
Agreed.
Well, because it's true. There's so much to it. I mean, there's religion, there's politics, there's morality, there's the duality of the light side, the dark side, maybe the middle, like in Mortis. I mean, there's just so much in Star Wars that you can delve into that, you know, I think you can have conversations forever about it, honestly.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, how did you then get introduced to Star Wars? Well, do you remember when you saw the movies for the first time?
Yeah.
The originals first, how did you start?
Yeah, so I just turned 25, so I'm like perfect prequel kid age. And first one I ever saw was Attack of the Clones in theaters, and you know, which Attack of the Clones right now having a real moment. So
It
I'm
is
really excited about that.
This
There's
is-
definitely the Attack of the
We
Clones
were just
Renaissance
talking about
starts now, and which is funny because, you know, quick aside, Celebration this year would have been Empire 40, but now when Celebration happens, it'll be Attack of the Clones
Attack of the
20,
Clones 20. Yep.
which can't wait for that.
It's crazy. It's crazy
So
how time flies.
oh God, I know. It's time is, we could talk about time as a 5-hour podcast just of us sitting around crying.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we and my family, like we all sort of had this understanding that I could just kind of watch whatever I wanted. Like I was never told not to watch any. The only time I was ever stopped from watching anything was South Park. When my mom saw me watch South Park, she came in front of the TV and was like, nope, not doing that. Scooped me up. But I was able to just dive in, and my mom wasn't a nerd or anything, and my dad was never around, so it was just me, her, and my sister. But my uncles really loved Star Wars, and so it would trickle down to me like in gifts or, you know, trips to the movies, whatever. But I had 2 walkie-talkies, and one of them was Vader's helmet, and the other one was a stormtrooper. And the stormtrooper, like, whatever. But then, irrelevant to the story. But this Vader helmet, I remember holding it in my hand because it's Star Wars, you're playing, whatever, while one of my cousins or somebody was watching The Phantom Menace on home release. And this was probably around the time Attack of the Clones in theaters too. That was all sort of like one formative experience. And I remember somebody telling me like, that little boy is Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And like that was him when he was a little boy. And I remember like looking at it like Hamlet or something. Like, like what? And just the idea that like someone could change that massively. And then you tie it in with Attack of the Clones, seeing this cool 19-year-old Anakin doing the double sabers and the, you know, he's Natalie Portman's his girlfriend, and you just want to be him.
Yes.
Yes. You want to be that
was
guy.
one aspect that I was very jealous of.
Exactly. Like you're just looking at Hayden Christensen, and you're like, he's jumping out of the speeder, he's jumping on top of the Reek and in the arena, and you want to be him. And so it fascinated me, like, how does that little boy become this cool guy, become this freaking monster? And how people change. So then I just became obsessed, and I was like in kindergarten and first grade, every time they would let us write what we wanted, I was writing about how like Mark Hamill is my hero, and I want to be Anakin Skywalker and George Lucas. And, you know, did you know that George Lucas used to race cars? Like everything that I could figure out. So yeah.
That's awesome.
So you saw the prequels before seeing the original trilogy?
I think I saw, it was probably like a mixture of both, like clips of both or whatever. I can't remember exactly the order that I saw them. Clones was definitely the first in theaters. But interestingly enough, I remember the first time I saw Empire, and it was because the I Am Your Father twist did nothing to me, because it had already been riffed on in Toy Story 2. And in Toy Story 2, Zurg hits him with the I Am Your Father. So my experience was more like, oh, that's where they got it. Okay.
Well, it's one of those complicated things, right? Unless you're completely inoculated from the world, it's that's
Mhm.
a hard twist to keep a secret nowadays, right? Because it's just
Yeah.
everywhere
Yeah.
in all, not just in culture, but it's also in all media. Because everyone, like you said, not just Toy Story, but a bunch of movies and TV shows also spoof.
Right. Right.
So
And you realize as you get older and older how many things are just Star Wars. Like even things that aren't doing Star Wars are still kind of doing Star Wars. Like would there be the Harry, Ron, and Hermione dynamic if it was not Luke, Han, and Leia? Like
Right.
that idea of
Mhm.
let's put the capable woman in the trio with, you know, kind of the jokey guy, but also the destiny guy, all sort of comes from this, you know, very directly. And you could trace it back further to like Wizard of Oz and stuff a little bit too.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I became obsessed with like mythology and the behind the scenes of it all. Knowing about these guys, you know, like as we're recording right now, we've got like you and I have behind the scenes shirts on, and you know, Dave and that whole relationship. So yeah, so that was huge.
What would you say was like that moment where it was just more than a media or a story that you consume, and it became that religion or mythological aspect of your life? Do you have like, can you like
Yeah,
remember that? Or
yeah. So my favorite Star Wars movie is Return of the Jedi,
okay,
and I can tell you,
Osvaldo will agree.
yeah,
Osvaldo would agree.
oh yeah. So I can tell you the exact moment that I realized that Star Wars was me, or that I was Star Wars, or that something was happening, was because, and this becomes like really serious, not really serious, but like very personal. Um, so people might be like, "This is sad." I'm not sad about it, but so my dad was gone before I was born, not dead, just
Mhm.
a jerk. And so he dead to me. So he left, and then I grew up, you know, with whoever. My mom remarried, whatever. But then there came that conversation when I was young where people explained to me what happened, and you know, you're hurt and you're angry and you're all these things, and you're resentful of not being wanted, and you're wishing that you could do anything, that you could do anything to change the way things are. And you don't appreciate what you have yet. And you're, you know, you're a kid and you're angry. And I didn't get over this stuff until, you know, early adulthood, like 18, 19 is when I really started to deal with it. But seeing Luke on the second Death Star succeed and like be right and like turn him and it actually like, whoa, even though he was this jerk, and then in the myth it's this monster, you know, more man than
Mhm.
machine, the fact that he was right and that they in the end did it together was just a mind-blowingly important moment. So that's always been my favorite lightsaber duel for that reason, is because it was just an affirmation. You flash forward then to Han on Star Killer Base, and it's this dad. It takes it one step further a little bit where he is realizing, "Oh, I was wrong. He doesn't need to be on his deathbed or dying. He's not a Sith Lord. He's just a guy saying, I could have done better. Come home. Like, give me another chance." So that's one step further. And then you take it another step further. I just talked about this on Twitter with Grogu and Din, where Din did
Yeah.
right from the first day. From the first day. And, you know, at the time of this recording, it's coming off of the, you know, he means more to me than you will
Yes.
ever know. That whole
Ooh,
thing, I'm
that was
over here
good. I
crying.
got chills and everything.
That was fantastic. The way he said it. Oof.
Yeah, it was just
Mhm.
incredible. So all of that stuff of like patriarchal, you know, father son
Mhm.
relationships
Dynamic.
made it really poignant. And then you start to branch off into everything else, the politics of George, all that stuff.
It's amazing. Thank you for
Impressive,
sharing
man.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
no, of course. This is what it's all about.
yeah.
Everybody has
And
a Star
also,
Wars story.
yeah, yeah.
And that's what makes, I'm sorry not to take over, but that's what make art and Star Wars a little bit different. Everybody can make it their own,
Right.
and everybody can share it. And then that's the beauty. It just as it's a galaxy of a plethora of beings, we can also have our own galaxy of a plethora of ideas of what Star Wars is. So thank you for sharing it.
No, of course. And that's the beauty of what you're saying about how it's this galaxy of interpretations and experiences. That's why I don't ever hit anyone with "you're wrong." Like, do you hate the movie that I love? That's fine. Like, it's annoying that we're arguing about it, but you're not wrong. There's, I think, bad faith arguments or arguments where it's
Yes.
clearly like we watch something different. Like, example, going to Rise of Skywalker because I love a fight. It's the idea that I've seen floated, just as one small example, that Rey aggressively destroyed Palpatine. That to me is just we watch something different because like she only defends in that entire sequence. So that becomes an issue of bad faith. That becomes an issue of, are you misremembering it? Am I misremembering it? What did we see? Because I see her, blocking. She doesn't strike down any of his troops or anything. So it's interesting sort of how wants and expectations sort of play into what people saw, like even with Luke in Last Jedi, another film that everyone agrees on.
Yes, universally agreed.
Oh yeah, it brought us all together. People say like, oh, didn't I was mad that Luke was just a bitter, broken guy the entire time, and it makes me think like, well, did you leave before the end? Because that was the point, is that he got over it and he did what he had to do, and we should all follow that example and get over ourselves, to a certain degree. So it's both. We can all have our own takes, but also the art is the art. It's not there to make you happy. It's there to make you think.
Yeah. Which is something that's interesting with the narrative that a lot of people have online, and I don't know if it's a cynical thing of like getting likes or shares or subs or whatever that people feed. I don't know if it's cynical in the sense of like doing it for those reasons of like being extra hateful and critical about some of the aspects of these films. Because I find that I find that a lot of the arguments are, like you said, are done like in bad faith and just to be hypercritical. But I don't know if it's like you were saying to open that conduit for discussion, or if it's just for for likes, for lack of a better term. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's so Star Wars too, right? Of if it is, for affirmation or for likes or for any of that, there's a lot of irony, and that's one of the ironies is part of Star Wars is to acknowledge that it's not about you. That's what all the main characters have to do. And I would pose that theme to some of these, I want clicks and likes people. And then furthermore, it's, part of Star Wars is about letting go. Part of Star Wars is about choosing to not fight. So you see a lot of arguments of, oh, Luke should have done more. And it's like, well, no, he was more true to what you are misremembering. They remember Empire being dark and grim and badass, and like it is to a large degree. But Empire is also the movie where the mentor keeps telling the kid, "Don't go, don't go, don't go. You're not ready." Then he goes, and he wasn't ready, and that's the entire point. They remember Han Solo being this cool gunslinging, like he always knows what to do. No, he doesn't. He never knows what to do. He's a huge goofball, and he always picks friendship. That's who Han Solo is. He's a dork. Cool is actually few and far between in Star Wars. Star Wars is not trying to be cool. Yeah. Star Wars is accidentally cool. Star Wars has cool designs, but even Din Djarin is cool for about one episode, and then he's a single dad and he doesn't know what to do.
Yeah. Especially after Friday's episode, we see that once some of the things that he has grown accustomed to, i.e., the way or the mask, whichever way you want to see it, he just crumbles and becomes unsure, broken person.
Yeah.
Well, and that's beautiful. Like just because each character, by being themselves and eventually finding what's important to them, makes them cool.
Exactly.
And that's what we should all learn. How can you learn to fit into and be who you are? Then you'll be cool. Doesn't matter how you look. It's except last episode, Boba coming out was cool. The whole green mad, that's just cool.
Yeah.
But it's like you said, the Boba Fett syndrome, where people were just saying that Boba Fett has been cool and a badass for 30 years, but if you remember those movies, he literally does nothing. earned that, and finally we get him do something in the Mandalorian that actually makes him earn that mantle. And some
Exactly.
people are actually, online. It was so weird to see some uh, factions of the fandom kind of react negatively to Boba's portrayal, saying that they're betraying the character and who he has been, and like, it just seems like a fan film version of Boba. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, we've never seen him do anything. So anything they do with him is Boba Fett, because so
the
far
character.
he's an empty vessel.
Yeah, like to those people, I would say, you know who Boba Fett is? He's the little boy that goes, "Yep, that's Boba Fett." And what did that boy become? You know, Boba Fett is not cool. Robert Rodriguez is cool, and he made Boba Fett cool for the first time in his entire career.
Yes.
Like that was El Mariachi and Desperado, and even like a little bit of like, you know, Spy Kids with sort of like, you know, the zaniness and like the robots coming down and scooping up Grogu. Like that was like a whole little palette of his career. And that's what, you know, that's kind of, you know, we'll get into it in a bit with like directors and stuff. Like they are able to inject what they think is cool into Star Wars. But the only thing cool in Star Wars is like figuring out who you are. Like, you know who's cool? Max Rebo. He's a good musician, good at his job. He doesn't need to be handsome. Like, he's just doing his thing.
He is handsome. He's the most, and we know he's alive. The holiday special confirmed it.
Yeah.
He survived the sail barge.
That was my biggest takeaway. Where's my Disney Plus show?
Exactly. Kathleen Kennedy, come on. You announced Lando, but you're not gonna announce Max Rebo?
Right.
Star Wars is dead. Kathleen Kennedy doesn't know what she's doing.
No, not at all.
You imagine like a show kind of like Max Rebo trying to find like a new band, and
a new
band casting, and like it'll be interesting.
Oh, that'd be amazing if you did it like
trying to get one of the Jizz Whalers.
Yeah, you did it like mockumentary style of like.
Yeah, that'll be amazing.
Oh my god,
Spinal Tap.
Yeah, like Rebo, you know, like the Rebo reunion tour. Like he had to reassemble the band, and
maybe that's what Taika's doing. Because like I don't know that logo that
it's all blue and
maybe
I want that logo on a shirt.
It's
so
wild
bad.
enough.
Can you imagine? We find that Max Rebo through music found a way to connect to the Force and kind of like has to like do its own thing. Who knows?
Yeah, and then like Max Rebo finally speaks basic, and it's Taika. And he's like, you know, hey man, I love making music. You know, I love to play my little board here.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah. Oh my god.
I'll take 2 trilogies of that, please.
Yeah.
Wow.
Going forward, before going into the main discussion, what's your relationship now with Star Wars? We know that you have your own podcast.
Right.
And that you guest with other people too. How did you start getting into that world? Because like all 3 of us, I think we all had like a very personal relationship with Star Wars, but it wasn't until like fairly recently that all 3 of us decided to, hey, we like talking about this on our own. We see other people talking about it online. Why don't we start joining that discussion? So it was a fairly recent thing for us. How did that happen with you, where you kind of broke away from having Star Wars be a very personal and intimate thing and just starting to do it in a more public setting?
Well, I always had a little bit of the I like to share sort of what I'm doing mentality. You know, I did like plays in like middle school and high school, and you know, did like public speaking and like debate and things like that. So I've always wanted to engage like outward. But Star Wars, like you were saying about the 3 of you, it was very, very personal. And I didn't have friends that like got it like I got it. I had friends that really liked it, but you couldn't say, you know, do you ever just think about, you know, Darth Revan? Like you couldn't say that to anybody. And like
you wake
like
up in the middle of the night and
yeah, like like literally, like I remember one summer I was playing Knights of the Old Republic 2 for the first time. My mom was like, "You're going to stay with your grandma for the summer," and I was like, "Cool. Can I bring my Xbox?" She goes, "No." So the entire summer I'm up there at grandma's house, like, "Grandma, I never got my last lightsaber piece." And I waited like 2 months to get back home to play it. Poor grandma. But I couldn't tell that to anybody. They wouldn't have cared or
they wouldn't get. Yeah.
So then, you know, flash forward to middle school, high school, you start realizing, oh, there's a culture of like people are talking about this like on the internet. And you grew up a Star Wars fan, you know who, like, you Siskel and Ebert, but you know who like Leonard Maltin is, and these people that have made Star Wars documentaries or important Star Wars interviews. So that there is a discussion to be had, Star Wars celebrations, there's panel hosts. So that there's like a community of people to a degree that are talking about it. But, in high school, I started writing for a couple different websites, like reviews of like video games, comics. And I had a Star Wars show back then that just went for like a year with a couple of buddies when I was 18. So I started writing on the internet when I was 14. I lied about my age a lot to get into groups or to get like little gigs. And then that show didn't last, and I sort of stepped back from the space for a while. And it was about a year ago that I thought, well, now I am a professional broadcaster to a certain degree. I work in radio, I produce and things. And I thought I could be the show that I would want to listen to. And I could, which is what everybody should be doing. You should not chase anyone. Do not ever do it. You can always hear it. You can always hear when somebody is trying to be something else. And even in a couple of my original episodes, which are still up, I'm not ashamed of them, but you listen to them. I was covering news in a very like, let me hit it like a YouTube pundit type way, like trying to be like, any of these names that like any of the big companies like IGN, Screen Junkies, whatever, and which can make great stuff. But I realized I just want to talk to people about this thing in the way that we have been right now. So my show became really what it always really should have been, which is a Star Wars interview show. I joked about Inside the Actors Studio earlier with you, and it is sort of like that. Like there are a lot of like one-on-one conversations of like, why do you love this? Where did it start for you? Sort of stretching that out across. Sometimes we tie that in with a certain topic, and branch it a little bit. So there's one with Joseph Scrimshaw, who is a comedian and a host and everything, and we talk about his Star Wars background, but also through the lens of what is comedy in Star Wars and how does that work. So I loved breaking that stuff down, and I realized that that is what I'm happy doing in this space. I don't rush my stuff out. My Mandalorian interviews don't come out until the next Monday, because I let it sit and I let it breathe and I just think about it. And yeah, I don't like to react. I was telling you, I don't do reaction videos. I don't do that stuff. It's all great, but it has to be as conversational as possible.
Dude, I think we're on board with those sentiments too, because I think one of the things we were discussing, we were about to start, is like, okay, what is the show we want to produce, right? And in the back of my mind, it's always like the what you were saying is like, should we kind of start doing what other people do and just talk about those Star Wars news? And it's just like, well, no, because it just seems like it's derivative, and everyone does it, and everyone does it the same way, and there's not a lot of flexibility into it, and that's not what we like to discuss. So we kind of ended up where more or less what you're saying is just like, well, three of us like to discuss Star Wars amongst ourselves,
right?
Why don't we just talk about Star Wars amongst ourselves as we normally would?
The conversations that you have as friends are valuable enough. You don't need to dress them up and gloss them up and try to make them, takes. It doesn't need to be that way. And like, that's not to say like a good hot take isn't fun. Like, I love an internet scrap. Like I love a good 15 tweet thread fight. I admit that. That's my personal flaw, is that I will not give up. Like I will go the whole weekend tweeting you if I have to. But that's fun for me, and I can do that. But in terms of the show, what I love about the three of you is that you're approaching it from a shared cultural perspective, which is underrepresented across the board. I mean, I did an episode with Andres Cabrera from First Cut and the Meaning of Podcast, and now he has a Star Wars show with Emma Fife called Sabak the Block, which I love that title. And yeah, it's good. And we did an episode on Latinx representation in Star Wars, and Andres at the beginning drops a lot of statistics that are just terrifying and like just really, really bad in terms of, what is the amount of roles given to Latinx people in Hollywood, and then breaking that figure down into how many of them are crime or service related roles, and breaking that down, and sort of realizing how fortunate we are, how there's so much to do, but how fortunate we are that this galaxy has given us all of the space poppies, Din, Bail Organa, Kanan, Cassian, Poe, and how that keeps expanding out. And now with Cassian Andor's show, Andor, we're going to be able to see, we've heard maybe his sister, we're not really sure, but maybe, and see, some Latina representation as well in Star Wars. So I love, that's a long way of saying that I love that you lead with that immediately, in your logo, in how you're starting the show, in how you are pitching the show, and how you're approaching it, together, unified in that way, is immediately, I think, just engaging and important. And again, we can all cover news. Everyone can cover news, but can you make it interesting? I remember talking about the Bad Batch announcement, and yeah, like, it's cool. I did an episode on the Bad Batch announcement, but it's not about the news. It's about what's special about that period for those 5 guys after Revenge of the Sith. I don't care that there's going to be an animated show on Disney Plus. I care about what the animated show on Disney Plus is going to tell me.
Yeah, very interesting. I want to, because that was interesting, so I want to piggyback off of that. In terms of like the Latinas representation and whatnot, it's very interesting because I always feel like there could be more could be done. Every time there's something, I'm like, but it's not enough. And the more I think about it, I was just thinking about that actually not too long ago. This Star Wars has actually been reasonably good with male Latino representation in its media, because we actually have a reasonable amount of actors in leading roles that are that. But then I think of like a female or non gender conforming roles in the Star Wars galaxy for like Latin actors, and it's very lackluster. Because I try to think of names and I come up with very, very few ones. Is basically Brigitte Cali, Tasia Valencia, and most of them are animation, which is which isn't to say that it's not valuable, because I think animation is also a very important medium that we can have a representation in. But that angle is neglected, and I don't know like how we can start raising like more awareness into that, other than like what we're doing right now, because it kind of feels in a way that Lucasfilm, even though they're doing well and they're doing better than other people, it kind of feels that they're not really listening to a lot of the fandom, especially with some of the controversies, right, that are surrounding some actors.
Controversies? What controversies? Is there something?
There aren't ever any controversies.
No, yeah, no, you're right.
And it just feels like it's ignored. So like how can we keep having a voice when the people that are supposed to be uplifting those voices are, I wouldn't say silencing them, but definitely ignoring them.
I think that it's interesting, and I want to ride that very thin line of what's my place to speak on, because I'm Puerto Rican, but I am the most white passing, the most Americanized, not from Puerto Rican of all time. No one would ever be able to tell if they didn't ask, is usually my lived experience. And that's something that I've had to reconcile with and had to learn about, and really had to now in my adulthood try to say it can't be an afterthought. When I was a kid, I used to say, "Oh, I'm from Connecticut," and like, I'm Puerto Rican. My grandma's Puerto Rican. But it's now in my adulthood that I realize like I need to put in the work to sort of find that part of myself. So with that, I don't want to speak for anyone, and I especially don't want to speak for people that are even further outside of that purview. But what I will say is that I think Lucasfilm and otherwise, what we need to do, or what needs to be done culturally, is a confrontation of like authentic portrayals. And I thought that it was super interesting in Clone Wars season 7 how many people dogged on the Martez sisters.
Yep.
Really didn't like the Martez sisters. And I thought that there was a little bit, honestly, of like institutionalized, unconscious, not malicious, like
Mm.
hate, but there was a little bit of like, oh, like I started realizing like you don't like them because they are Latina sisters.
Yep.
Like
Yep. Yep.
that is
Absolutely.
like when I watched them, I was like, oh, I know them. Like I know those people. Like they reminded me of my sister or cousins that I
Mhm.
have that are way more, way more culturally immersed, and
Mhm.
they were tough and no nonsense, and they had that us before anyone else vibe, and like that we
Mhm.
stick together, and all of that felt really authentic to me. And I thought watching them that they were going to be people's new favorites, and then they
Mhm.
weren't. And I was like, oh, you want Latina women that are in your box. That's what it is. You want Black women that are like Jana, that still have an English accent, that are, on their horseback and like very, not that Naomi Aki isn't wonderful. She's amazing, but they haven't represented, we see it in music too. They haven't represented today's,
Yeah.
minority, marginalized groups in a really like in your face raw way, which is why it's so important that someone like Diego Luna
Mhm.
isn't faking a different accent,
Yeah.
Yep.
his portrayal. We need more and more and more and more of that. Like it's cool that John Leguizamo was in Mandalorian, but
Yep.
it would have been cooler if John Leguizamo was like being straight up John Leguizamo in Mandalorian.
That might have
New
been too
Yorican
intense
all
though
the
for
way.
Yeah.
No, but I absolutely agree with like the Martez sisters, and like, and I mentioned, I think when we were talking to Brian from Pink Milk, that like me personally when I was growing up with Star Wars, like I didn't have the representation angle in my mind, or the, oh, why don't these people look like me thing in
Yeah.
the back of my mind that a lot of people do when they're growing up with like these type of media. I didn't have that. It's only like a more current thing that like I have in terms of like my expectations of how media should be represented or have representation included in. And I remember when I was watching season 7 of Clone Wars and the Martez sisters came out, that was one of those few times that I actually kind of got excited about a new characters. I'm like, because they were coded Latinas,
Yes.
they weren't like characters in Star Wars that happened to be voiced by a Latina actor.
Right.
They were coded, and that for me was very exciting because, as you were mentioning, in a lot of not just Star Wars but in media in general, we can have actors of color or minorities, and they're represented, but they usually represent in a way that makes a certain group of people comfortable, and
Exactly.
in a certain way that doesn't stray too far from the representation that they want to see of them.
Yeah.
So to see an animation, which is for me way more exciting than in live action, because live action, yeah, you can see what they look like, but have them coded culturally in that way was very exciting because it's like finally you're breaking those barriers in a way, and it's
Right.
kind of tricky with Star Wars, I feel, because it's not supposed to be this world,
Yeah.
so it's like that fine line of like how do you code them in that way that appeals to that group, but it's
Right.
still
And
not.
I would challenge, Star Wars creators at this moment in time, if they're afraid of that, if they're afraid of like how do we code but also be
Mhm,
Star Wars, I would throw Mayfeld right in their face, and I would
mhm.
say you gave white dudes the most drop your eyes Boston guy that I've
Yeah.
ever seen. And you gave him space. He might as well have had space Dunkin' Donuts in his hand because he was so Boston and nobody
Yeah.
questioned that. You know, you've given space Scottish people like, Balatik, who's like, Han Solo, you are a dead man. Like all of that.
Tell that to Kanja Club. Yeah.
Yeah, tell that the Ganja Club. There's no one left in the galaxy for you to swindle. All of
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
stuff it can be presented without a problem. Like, that's ridiculous. And that's why I wish that more people watched Resistance, because the
And
Dozas are
that's
such
okay.
an
Mhm.
authentic family. And they're, his name is, he's an ex-Imperial whose first name is Emmanuel.
Yeah.
Like he, and like the way that Vanessa, connects with him and with Torah, that all
Mhm.
fit really well. It's a reason why I think Spy Kids should be essential, like childhood viewing. Speaking of Rodriguez, because like it's just a whole movie is a celebration of these cast members and Cheech Marin and Danny Trejo and Carla Gugino and all these people. So yeah, I mean, long way to go, but we're definitely getting to that point where it's like you have less and less and less and less and less excuses.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's
odd. And even if it's just like, even if it's just like a complete money-wise excuse, the Latino population is increasingly more of a bigger market that has not been tapped. Even if it's just a simple number for them, there's a market. Like
they see movies. That was another stat that I didn't like the Latinx population loves to go to the movies. Like
in Puerto Rico, that's a thing. Like
we do. We love to go to the movies. So.
Weekends come and like that was a thing. You just go to the movies and it's like lines. It's like every weekend will look like it's like the latest premiere, but no, it's just people just going to the movies. Like,
it's always funny. I remember us growing up. I remember Friday. I don't know if like Nani and Mo, if this was a tradition in your family, but it was definitely in mine. Like every Friday, we would always go to the mall. So like Mo and Dad could do like their shopping and whatnot. But I remember we would go to the biggest mall in the island, and like, oh my God, the line in front of the movie theater every single Friday, and obviously the weekend too. It was like amazing. Like I didn't think much of it back then because it's normal. Yeah, everyone's just going to the movies. It's Friday. It's obvious. But like now in hindsight, it's a culture that is so film focused that I don't see here. Frankly, I mean, I went to see Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker here in Chicago, and I went to see them like first showing the day before and everything, and there weren't lines. And obviously, because you can buy tickets now online, lines are kind of a thing of the past. But like you don't get that excitement anymore, at least from my perspective, going to the movies here. Like you kind of feel, at least back then when I was growing back in Puerto Rico, that like the movies were a big deal. It was kind of like a religion in a way. Like some people went to church. Me and my dad went to the movies on Sunday.
And then you have like all the age groups, because like my grandma and my mom will go on Saturdays at noon, where they'll get like everybody gets the half off special, and that was a thing. Like,
no, I can't wait to be old.
65 and over. Yeah.
I can't wait for those specials, man. I see everything.
I love that. It came from your soul.
Yeah.
It's just like, I can't wait. I need that to happen.
I remember I was talking to my mom recently. My mom goes, guess what? I was like, what? She goes, I got the reduced price at Dunkin' Donuts because I'm old.
I'm super excited about it.
Of course, it's something to celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like surviving and learning and getting old is a celebration of life.
Yeah, I'm into it. I'm into it. I'm into everything that you're saying. I mean, I need when COVID is over to visit and just watch every movie. I might just hang out there for a month. And just everything that they release, I'm gonna check out.
I might finally get that AMC pass. It's like, I'm definitely going to one movie a day now.
Yeah,
get my money's worth.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the things I miss the most. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I miss like hanging out and like going to parties and blah blah. I'm like, no, I just miss the movies. I need my movies on the big screen.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't really miss all y'all. Like, I don't really.
I don't miss a whole lot of them. There's a couple of people. Okay, I need to go drink with them and move in the movies. Speaking of people, though, have you gotten a chance to go to any celebration?
Yeah. So I went to the one in Orlando, not the Last Jedi, the early Orlando one, 2011. And then Chicago last year, which was
we maybe bumped into each other.
Probably. No, probably. I mean, it's so funny that you say that. I have had a couple instances where people on Twitter have like shared a photo and then someone will respond to it and be like, is that Alden? And then it is like in the back of the photo, or like telling talking with friends in the community that we have, realizing that we were either at the same panel, in the same line, that we bumped into each other. I have coming up, I think right before Christmas Eve, or maybe the day before, Manny Castellanos is going to be on my show, talking about Star Wars comics, and we met in the line for the Rebels Remembered panel.
Wow.
And now we're it's like over a year out. So yeah, so Celebration is like, if this is like a religion, that's the Vatican. Like that is that's super. And let me tell you,
that's the pilgrimage.
I've been to the Vatican. Celebration is better.
Yeah. There's less the merch at the Vatican's not as good.
Weak merchandise, and it's you feel
Pope
way less judged. Yeah. I mean, Celebration is just. I mean, what else is there to say? I mean, the fact that it didn't happen this year, I'm still recovering from that.
Yeah. Thankfully, our tickets rolled over, so we'll be there ready.
Oh, and I still bought stuff from the store, like the show.
I thought this is bullshit. This shirt's $40. Disney taking
buying it anyway.
Yeah, buying it anyway.
It was just like, what do you mean it's $20 shipping? Fine. Like, it's not like I wasn't gonna do it. Like, I bought the Mudhorn egg. I'm just waiting for it to come in.
Wow.
The plushy egg.
They know exactly what they're doing.
They know how to get us.
I'm over here like I got bills to pay, and then I'm buying this. Like,
oh yeah.
Wow.
Like nice.
But I think then, speaking of Celebration, I think that's a good segue to go into like our main topic of discussion. And I think that obviously at this celebration, many of the things that were announced at the Disney Investors Day were going to be announced. Let's just go over to what the Investors Day was. Disney, I think it was Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken, had a Investors Day, which is when all the rich people talk about stocks and how great things are for them, even though things are terrible for the rest of us. And they're so privileged that they even get to see trailers that we can't even see. It's like, no, we're better than you. We get to see the Obi-Wan Kenobi sizzle reel.
And just put your account down there so you can just try to imagine it.
Exactly.
Yep.
And one of the best things about that Investors Day was that Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy, who has killed Star Wars for I don't know how many times now, who apparently doesn't know what she's doing, is going to get fired every day.
Not at all. She really killed that whole career too with like, E.T., Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, like all flops.
Yep.
Wasn't she supposed to get fired last year or the year before that?
Well, she was already fired.
This year?
She was already fired.
Yeah.
They just don't want to tell you.
Yeah, exactly. This is Kevin Feige doing all the things right. She was on stage and announced a slew of Star Wars projects, and I thought this would be a good time to not only go over them, because I think since this is going to come out on a Wednesday, a week after it was announced, many people have already gone over them, but it's a good time to not only talk about them, but go and deep dive into what we think those projects will be, what we're most excited for, and how it connects to anything that's going on right now. So let's just go over the list really quick of what was announced, and then we'll start going into them and see what we think. So first up was the Ahsoka show that everyone was absolutely confident was going to come out, especially after that Ahsoka episode that people correctly theorized that it was a backdoor pilot. After that, Rangers of the New Republic, which might be a contentious show. We will discuss soon why that would be. Mandalorian Season 3, Cassian Andor, now just called Andor,
So
Obi-Wan Kenobi, The Bad Batch, Star Wars Visions, Lando, The Acolyte, A Droid Story, Willow, where Warwick Davis does his triumphant return, Indiana Jones 5, which is allegedly the last Indiana Jones.
It's allegedly happening too.
I don't buy that for a second. Children of Blood and Bone, Taika Waititi's untitled Star Wars film, and then Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron.
Yeah.
That is a list.
When you read it off, it's like...
Yeah. Altogether, it's just like, wow.
It's like, why are you shoving all of this in my face? Like, what's happening? And then No,
Some people
all of
have been
that-
complaining about it though.
all of that and no rebels.
What, that it's
I'm
too
like-
much?
I'm
All
like,
of that
Yes,
and no
yeah.
rebels. Yeah.
Although according to Kessel Run Transmissions, that's still in development. They just didn't
it's
announce it.
it's yeah. I mean, I'm not. I don't want to like throw out like sources and like I'm not a leaker or
Mhm.
anything, but like
Mm.
it is like there's just no way. They did not announce everything. Like I'll tell you right now for a fact they didn't announce everything. And I'll tell you, not only did they not announce everything, something that they didn't announce is about to shoot. So
Mhm.
like so like there's stuff.
there's stuff. There's
I mean,
stuff
it does.
hidden.
It definitely doesn't make
surprises.
sense for them to have an Ahsoka show and then name drop Thrawn and not have a Rebel sequel show.
Yeah, it just doesn't. Something's happening. And they also, in that list was also the little like asterisk note of Rangers and Ahsoka and Mando are going to build to a climactic story event, whether or not that's a Disney Plus movie or like a Defenders like 8-part thing. We don't know, but there's going to be something there.
Yeah, some sort of crossover.
I think that's a good spot to start then this discussion, since those three are allegedly going to combine into a super show or of some sort. So let's just get Mandalorian season 3 out of the way, since that's clearly the most boring one so far, since we already know about it. It's supposed to air I think Christmas next year, I believe.
Christmas next year.
So we shall see if this season ends on a cliffhanger.
I'll be
or
so
not.
mad. I'll love it, but I'll be mad.
Yeah.
We were just discussing it because we were recording before getting into discussing last episode, and I think it makes sense for them to leave it on a cliffhanger and not getting Grogu back. This is the Empire Strikes Back. They have to leave it dark, because otherwise season 3 will just be season 2 2.0. If they don't do something different. So that's why I think cliffhanger, and Mando doesn't get Grogu back. Got to do something different for season 3.
I'll be so heartbroken.
I know. I know. I'm there with you. Like, I think it's the right way to go. It'll make it more interesting, but I'm going to be upset probably all of the next year. Waiting
Upset
for
in a good way.
In a good one. It's like you
Wow.
just have to wait. Let it build up. Let it feel. And
I just want to know, like, how far are they willing to go? Like, because not getting Grogu back would just be that would be more like deflating. But like if you really want to go like hard, you'll end it like Game of Thrones season 5 with like when Jon was bleeding out. Like, spoiler alert. Spoiler alert for show
no.
that everybody. But like if this ends like, Gideon like stabs Din with the Darksaber, and then like I'm not saying cut to black, but maybe it's like
black.
yeah, I'm like explosion, like Bo-Katan runs in and she like reaches for the saber or something, but before she can get it, like he cuts Din, like something really crazy, and you end on a shot maybe Boba, Fennec, and Kara get the baby out of there, and then it's where's Din or something like that.
Okay.
And he's alone. Like that could be crazy.
That could be
yeah,
crazy.
I could buy I could buy that. That would be interesting. Even though then it wouldn't be the Mandalorian anymore. The show would have to be renamed
Well, the
Mandalorian's
Mandalorian
Friends.
Well, then it's two vantage points. It's
two stories, yeah.
Boba and baby and dad over here
Mhm.
trying to
Some Lord of the Rings type of thing, like
It's
on one side, Frodo on the other type of thing.
well, it's the only.
I could buy it.
I think it will be a good way to develop each character as themselves, because I think that's what we talked about. Like, we haven't seen Din making his own decisions to grow. It's always been like, oh, next step, like how. So maybe that's what season 3 is about. It's like now Din again loses now his found family, and how do you find yourself again and then get back again together?
Right, because this is the deconstruction of Din Djarin. You lost your home, you broke your creed, you're being chipped away at slowly but surely. You don't know how to talk to people without your helmet. Like
You clearly
You don't even know how to look at people without your
Yeah, it's
helmet.
like
no,
Just like
it's the what are you doing? Like he doesn't.
I can move my neck.
Yeah, he doesn't know what a TK. What
I can
should
see
TK
beyond
download?
beyond this.
Yeah, he's
Peripheral vision, isn't it magical?
he's
No,
It's-
but it's a true thing because like I don't know if it happens to you guys like, but at least using like glasses, it's like you tend to move your head more often than not
yeah.
because the point of focus in the glasses is not if you look sideways you see the frame or up like at least I've used glasses all my life so
yes.
that's
Yeah.
how I look so I felt like, ooh, like
It's a great point. I mean, those acting choices. I mean, this is a fun little Star Wars thing that not a lot of people talk about. When they were casting for the young Han Solo for Solo, one of the actors who auditioned was Charlie Cox from Daredevil.
Mhm. Oh,
And
really? I did
yeah,
not know
and
that.
Charlie
that.
Cox says that he blew the audition because he was still performing like he would for Daredevil because he was still like working on a season, and they would be like, why doesn't this guy like make eye contact with the actor that he's testing with? Because he was so used to playing a blind
Being
man
blind.
that
Yeah.
he would just like look past people, and they were like, this guy's
Interesting.
not.
this
you
guy's
Yeah.
not there.
He's not
good. He
engaging.
sucks.
in the-
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, that's what happens when good characters are immersed, when good actors are immersed in a character. So,
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was
Good for him. Hey, hopefully Daredevil comes back apparently in Spider-Man 3 since everyone's coming back.
I hope.
I think all four of us are casted in Spider-Man 3 too.
Yeah, I'll be
rumors-
Spider Pig,
The only
Spider Ham.
I think the only person that's not coming back in Spider-Man 3 is Tom Holland. That's the only
Yeah,
person.
honestly.
Quick question, not to keep going on Mando, since Mando's I can't talk about him too much. But do you think that after Grogu being on that Seeing Stone or whatever it's called, the Jedi Temple, do you think will get to see if he made contact with someone, and if so, who do you think that person will be?
I think he contacted somebody, but it is not in a I choose this path type of way. They have to spin that because Ahsoka gives a binary choice. Grogu will choose his path. He's going to reach out to somebody or he won't. And they don't answer the question in the episode, which is really clever.
Yeah.
And you would think he either reached out to a Jedi or not. Clearly he did something. So what was he doing? I think he was either A, reaching out to say, leave me alone, I want to stay with my dad. Or he reached out to say, protect us. Like he's not saying I want to be trained.
Yeah.
So I think that, that something will happen there. Now, as for who it is, either protect us or leave us alone, I think that I would love it if this season ended and it was a cloaked figure getting to the Seeing Stone, and that's how it ended. And you didn't see.
And you don't know who it is.
You didn't see. I think that would be
You're getting that.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's a mean.
I like that.
It's mean, but I like it.
I think that that's
like
something
it.
like that, or maybe you see a lightsaber hilt, and that's your
See,
way.
I like that because we could be able to tell by the hilt.
Yeah, then
who it
like
is.
your
and people will be
casual fans
deconstructing that little scene for like a year to see what piece of the lightsaber is for who.
Yeah, but who would I like it to be? Ahsoka, I think, is done until her show.
Yeah.
I think, and also it would just be weird to build it up and just bring her back.
Yeah.
Ezra is a possibility, but I think that we have to wait for him until we get really into the Thrawn story.
Mhm.
Cal Kestis, I think, is off the table. I honestly,
Because he dies before the events of the show.
well, yeah, I think so. I think that Fallen Order 2 or 3, he dies. I would love it if it was either give me something really out of left field, like I always push it should be Gungi from Clone Wars. Give me a Wookiee that just shows up.
That'd be amazing.
That he survived, or Luke Skywalker. Like it has to be. Like at that point, like he's.
But are you an advocate for Sebastian Stan, Luke Skywalker, or a DH?
Yeah, I am. I'm not saying if it's not him that I'll be upset. I won't be. But I think that he's right there. He was already on the Disney payroll, and he's aware of the meme, and so is Mark Hamill. So I say, yeah, just make it Luke. I don't want Luke overshadowing anything, but the amount of Luke that's in Battlefront 2, where it's one story, and then he gives a lesson before he leaves the game, I think that could be, like if he was like, I'm not ready to build a school yet. I don't, I'm waiting for, what if he says like, I'm waiting for my nephew to come of age
Oh my
or
God.
something, or something like
Raylos,
that.
the Raylos will explode.
Something crazy.
A DH Adam Driver.
All the way into a baby.
Yeah.
He's got the same hair.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, so I think
baby
Yes,
swole.
swole baby.
Just like a
with like
swole baby.
half a onesie that comes up to here.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, you could go 1,000 different ways with it. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
curious to know what do you think? What do you all say? I mean, are you Quinlan Voss people? Like, is this going to be a new?
Nah, Quinlan Voss is dead. I mean, I like that idea, but he's dead.
Yeah.
Moe has the interesting one that I don't like.
I want it to be, well, I guess my head kind of will be Mace Windu will be a nice background to, you have an old version who, was pretty much Yoda's best friend during the Clone Wars. And so to have a student that resembles his master, and then eventually that at the same time, you have the Boba and Mace Windu conflict, because Mace Windu killed Boba's parents. I feel like there's a lot of tie-ins, and you get to bring back the coolest lightsaber. I mean,
true.
Probably lightsabers out there, but it's a purple saber.
Like, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful saber.
Mm-hmm.
I like that for the reason of what Ahsoka said about Grogu, that his past, his memory gets dark, and he feared using his abilities.
Yeah.
I think that if you paralleled that with Windu, it could be interesting. My only reservation about Windu would be, where the hell were you? And
this whole time.
And the more we get, I mean, it's already hard to answer that question with certain characters that it's even less of a gap. Like Ahsoka in the original trilogy, we still don't really know. We know that she became Ahsoka the White. We know that something spiritual must have happened. We don't really know. It's only 4 years. With Mace, it's like, damn, dude, like, were you that broken and defeated?
Wow. Yeah.
Or what if that could be a great, because kind of what you said a little bit before, Alden, like it will be great for season 3 to have 2 parallel stories. So now you have, I at least my wishful thinking is that I want a story that delves, like explores the Force, and who better than this person that probably gave up on the Force. Mace Windu probably, I could see that story where just gives up on the Force, because clearly whatever he believed in led to the Sith become the Empire. So now it's completely defeated, and then getting again to that idea, like kind of like mirrors look, like, oh wait, I still have, or I can do something that I can leave a legacy. I don't know. I can see like he was just like stuck in the world between worlds kind of thing, just meditating or something, and you can read it.
Look at the faces on this call right now. Look at everybody poo-pooing Mace. Look at that.
It's fine. It's okay, citizen.
Citizen.
What about you, Nani? Who do you think, Nani?
I have no idea what's gonna happen. I don't know. I think they're gonna end up being separated. I don't know if it's gonna necessarily be Din, the one being left behind, but I think they are gonna end up being separated here at the end. So
do you have any opinion on what Jedi, if any, is gonna answer the call?
I would like if it was Luke, actually. And if it was framed in that way that you don't make him overpowering, I think it would be a great addition to the story, honestly.
Yeah. You do handle it the same way you just handled Ahsoka. I don't want any Jedi to be there for more than 40 minutes of the show. Like they need to be in and out. The beautiful thing that this show does is it always, dangles in your face the idea that this could be much bigger, and then it reins it all the way back in. There's Bo-Katan saying, we're going to take the throne of Mandalore, and we're going to go to war and take back our planet, but we're going to focus on Din and the baby. Oh, there's Ahsoka talking about Grand Admiral Thrawn, and there's a Jedi, and oh my God, but we're going to focus on Din and the baby. The show never forgets what it is. And even with, we're about to talk about the Ahsoka and Rangers show, Carson Teva saying to Cara Dune, like, oh, there's stuff going on out here. We're hearing like stories and different things like that. But that's not for this show. Like, we're still focusing on everything. So if it's Luke, if it's Leia, if she's like, I felt the call, and I'm a mom, and I
Mhm.
kind of put my saber down already, but I'll point you in the direction of somebody. Bye. Like that's sort of how you get Leia would be your way to address let's see a little bit more of her after training, because she only trained for about a year because Ben Solo was born a year after Endor. So there's only a year to play with her holding a blade. But her now could be like, yeah, I mean, I trained with my brother and I'm kind of trying to build a new republic. And then that sort of also addresses those things that Mayfeld's talking about how the new republic kind of sucks. And, she would be your way to have your cake and eat it too, but not have to show another saber. Only problem is, I mean, who do you get? That's the problem.
Casting for that's gonna be difficult.
That would be crazy.
Yeah, interesting. I hadn't thought of the Leia angle. I can dig it. I can dig it.
I can
Or
dig it.
or maybe they just have like Leia training Rey on new scenes, and they can just reintegrate that.
Oh, I see. I don't know because okay, maybe.
Like de-age the stuff that already exists.
Yeah,
It's not impossible. I mean, we
And
saw it. We saw
We know
it.
they have
we
they have the budget.
we know they have the technology, the power to do
The
it.
technology and the budget. I mean, because I think
Yeah.
I don't know if it was Bob Iger who mentioned that like all of their Disney Plus shows that they want to put out, they have to be movie quality. They can't look like TV shows. They have to be a movie, which I think is a very ambitious thing to say. But judging by Mandalorian, they're knocking it out of the park. It's Mando, like each episode just looks better than the one before it.
It does. I'm
can't
struggling
even
to
tell.
think. I'm struggling to think just before we continue. I wanted to ask: is there anyone that's on the table that we're forgetting in terms of Jedi? Is there anyone else that it really could be?
It's Ezra, Cal Kestis. Oh my god, I forgot his name. You just mentioned it, and it totally went out of my brain. Mace Windu, Luke Skywalker, Leia, and Quinlan Vos. I think those are the names floating around.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the one that would disappoint everyone the most is an original character. We'll love them, but
but it's
everybody
like
has
how many
married.
Jedi?
Yeah, everyone has married themselves to the idea that it's going to be someone that we know.
But if it's a Force ghost, and then it's just like it could be anybody.
Really love the idea of a ghost. I'm glad you mentioned that. Somebody said if it's Ewan McGregor, and he just visits somebody, talks to him. If it's Ewan McGregor, then he can say, "I remember you." I remember when you were, a youngling, to Grogu. Like you were even tinier then than you were now, and you were just learning, and
or Ghost Yoda teaching Grogu.
I don't know if I would like Ghost Yoda. It's just
be Yoda.
Too much. Too much
Yodas.
Too much on the nose.
Yeah, it's like okay, Yoda.
I think Obi-Wan would be fantastic, actually. Now that you mentioned it.
Yeah. Qui-Gon Jinn.
And it will tie in. It will be like a good way to like tie in the Obi-Wan show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of other shows, since we haven't left Mandalorian, Rangers of let's do the one we just want to get rid of. Rangers of the New Republic, which seems like it's gonna be like, I'm not gonna say a police procedural, but something along those lines of peacekeepers of the New Republic in the Outer Rim trying to keep order. It seems like I remember before this announcement, it was rumored that Cara Dune would have a spin-off show from The Mandalorian. I don't know if this. It seems like it probably is. This Rangers of the New Republic seems to be that show. I don't know if she's still attached to it or
because
they didn't do any casting.
Not what I know, but what I kind of know. That Cara Dune and it was like a Cara Dune and Bo-Katan spin-off thing, which people have been putting out there. That information is old. That information is very old. That's what I know. That information is like a year and a half old. It just got out after, but yeah, I mean, that's sort of what I know. I think that this will be given, the real world element of how somebody can't make good PR and can't keep their mouth shut. I think that what maybe was going to be a top role is going to get scaled and scaled and scaled back until it's a feature, maybe like a couple episodes. I think that her role in that might be as big as it is now in Mando, popping in and out, just keep her in her town and or kill her. But keep her in her town and just be like, yeah, is Marshall doing? And we'll check in with her once a season. But I think that your money is Carson. Your money's right there.
Yeah.
Make Carson Teva your lead. Give Dave Filoni a cameo, once a season. Give Iden Versio a lead role with Janina
Right.
Gavankar.
She's still alive during
She
this
would
time.
be, yeah. It's only been a couple years since Jakku. She would be in there, with her husband, with Dell. Bring them both in.
I like that. And Janina
Interesting.
Gavankar will definitely be game for that. See, this is one of those shows that I was least excited for. But once you mentioned Iden Versio, I'm like, oh, you have my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
Now you have my attention. Yeah, it's just the potential of, who are Rangers. I mean, is it going to be like kind of like a space cop show? Probably not like the best thing to do at the moment.
Or what if it's like Walker, Texas Ranger? It's just Chuck Norris type, just keeping peace.
It could be, it could be something like, I mean, Rangers of the New Republic. What if they deputize Cobb Vanth? Like something like that. And it ends up being like we're checking in with the deputies on different, they might not meet. It could be anthology, sort of like, you could do a ton of different things with this. I mean, Kess Dameron, like he was one of Han Solo's Pathfinders on Endor. What is he doing while Poe is in elementary school? Like, then the death of Shara could be something that you see in this show, and get a little boy to be young Oscar, and like you could do tons of stuff with this.
Wow.
I dig it. I dig it.
Yeah.
There you go.
There's definitely a potential. My concern now is, as a whole, with like this trilogy of shows, is that whole tying togetherness of all of them, because when they mentioned that at that investors day meeting, the first thing I thought about was the Defenders and just how underwhelmed I was with it, because Daredevil, fantastic, Jessica Jones, great, Luke Cage, I liked it. I didn't bother with Iron Fist. I'm sorry, but Defenders was just such a letdown.
Underwhelming experience.
Oh my god! It was like simultaneously the most half-baked and overbaked show at the same time.
Yes.
Like so many things were like put into it, but then none of it got the time it needed to develop as a standalone limited series. That I'm concerned that they're doing that same mistake with this, and it makes me wonder if that means that Mandalorian has an expiration date with the culmination of these three shows. And then after all three culminate into this show, then it's just okay.
If they all
three are done, and we keep it something else.
Yeah, if it could be like the triple conclusion, or who knows. But I what I think is going to happen, and what I think they've teed up is, we think that the Ahsoka show, Thrawn will be the villain of that. I think Thrawn is the villain of the crossover, where it's like Rangers of the New Republic, like, why do these things keep happening? Why is there like a building presence?
Yep.
Din is, Bo-Katan, Gideon, like his story continues, but a lingering presence of like, who gave Gideon a light cruiser? Who gave him the idea for dark troopers? Like, you could sort of see it there. And then Ahsoka obviously is on the hunt. If you announce like a 6-part like summer series and you call it Heir to the Empire, and it's all these characters versus Thrawn, that's how you win. That's how you win.
It's one of those double-edged sword things that I also am worried about with the Rogue Squadron. Since you are alluding directly to something from the EU, it's just my I mean, I'm good with it. It's just like, hey,
but then you get people that will be like, it's not
but
like
then, but then you get all the people that just love to hate Star Wars, even though it's just like, dude, if you hate this so much, why are you even a fan?
Then leave.
Like, there's the door.
I agree.
Read your EU books and just.
And I didn't think about it that way until somebody pointed out to me that it would take place that 9 years after Yavin is when Thrawn's campaign happened in the EU, and now we're playing in that exact same year in Star Wars is 9 years after Yavin, and that it could be the Rebel sequel and a little Zahn and a little everything else that they want to set up. So it could be it could be interesting, especially with the looming presence of Palpatine and the First Order, adding that into Thrawn's story of Thrawn saying, no, 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 like I need to rule, because if I don't, then things you don't know about are going to happen. You could do 1,000 different things.
I always have mixed feelings about the usage of Thrawn, just because I really, really like the character. I've read all except The Hand of Thrawn. I haven't read those EU books, but all the canon Thrawn books I'm up to date with. And at least the characterization that I get from Timothy Zahn of Thrawn is not that he's a villain. So like for me to kind of have him go into that path on the show will be kind of weird to digest, just because it's not the characterization I've gotten from it. I see him being more like, okay, I'm using the Empire because the Empire will serve the greater purpose of protecting the ship's ascendancy. So to then have him go back and just be like a pure villain to the show it would seem a little odd. But if it's done well, it's whatever. I'm all for good storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Zahn has said as much. Like Zahn's like, I'm prepared to write what happened to him, but that's not my purview. I don't have access to him on a whim. So if this climactic event is, let's take it back for one step. I said, what if he's not the villain of the Ahsoka show? What if he is? Ahsoka beats him, doesn't kill him, and then he says, no, 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 you need me. The Grisk are coming, and you pay off what his stuff has been building to as well. Okay. And then Thrawn is Loki. Thrawn is oh man, like he's kind of awful, but he's also right. And we
also kind of awesome anti-hero character.
Yeah.
I dig it. I dig it.
Yeah.
Goose looks a little impressed there.
I like it because it kind of ties into like my current headcanon of what is happening with Ezra specifically, because in my head, I mentioned this before, Ezra obviously up in the Purgle, and Thrawn and Ezra just went into hyperspace. I feel that they're in the unknown regions, and Ezra is setting up a Jedi Academy over there, but like his own Jedi Academy, so it's a different type of Jedi now, based on the Shiz Skywalkers. So like in my canon, he's like doing that separately, and the Ahsoka, like everything that's happening now with Mando is gonna eventually tie into that. So with what you mentioned, it works with that. So I dig it.
Yeah, could be really cool. I mean, whatever this event is with any of these three shows is going to be really impactful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'll be.
I think we're I think. What are you saying?
Oh, I think that way you framed it, at least it alleviates. Like I had that same worry that Goose was having, like, oh, are we heading for the Defenders kind of thing? But if you see it more as we're heading to an end game kind of thing, then it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. So I think that more or less kind of also takes in what the Ahsoka show might also entail, since we know she's looking for Thrawn. So maybe we can kind of keep going, since I know we're taking a long time now. So I don't know if we want to talk about every single thing here, or like there's things that we in particular want to discuss. Because I know we pretty confident that we all want to talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi. But do we want to go into Andor before that?
I don't care about Obi-Wan Kenobi. No, I'm kidding. No, go ahead. Wherever you guys feel is the best next step. I mean, Andor got a whole sizzle, so that was cool.
I'm not gonna say concerned, because I'm confident it's gonna be a good show. But like, I don't have that much to talk about personally about Andor, just because I know what they're doing with it. It's a kind of spy thriller type of thing, and he's gonna die in Rogue One. So I don't. There's not a lot of mystery there for me to, worry about what they're gonna do.
Aren't you looking forward to like seeing more from this character? He was such a great character, and Rogue One was fantastic.
Yeah, but that's my. I mean, I am looking forward to the show, but I'm not. But I don't feel the need to, theorize about it too much because
Mhm.
I feel like we're pretty clear on the broad strokes of the show.
But
Yeah.
it's interesting that they like also and they're really focusing on a very specific time frame. I don't know if that's gonna lead to, after all of this, we close chapter on what we know and then head into the High Republic side of things for the shows eventually.
Mhm.
Kind of like tie the ribbon on everything. Everybody's happy now with the overarching, I don't know, how is it, 90 years from from prequel to sequel. Is it?
Right.
And then, now we
Sequel to
tie,
sequel.
so we tie that whole saga. And then once that's phase one, and then let's do phase two and do a whole time frame. Because I feel like after this, I at least in my sense, I will be exhausted from this time frame. Like it's like,
Yeah.
is this the most important thing that happened in all the galaxy? Bro, like doesn't make sense. I don't know.
That's why the one show that like we know some of the least about, but I'm the most excited for is the Acolyte. So that's gonna be in the High Republic era.
I'm
And
excited for
I
it.
forgot the showrunner. I forgot her name.
Leslie
Apologize.
Headland.
Yeah, from Russian Doll. So I'm like really looking forward to that one, especially because of the description. It's gonna be like a thriller, and it's again in a separate time frame that we have never seen before.
Yeah.
So it has nothing to do with anything that we know of so far. Even though the theories are online apparently that might be Darth Plagueis, and it was the Acolyte or whatever. Which fine, which, okay. If they do it right, sure, I can get on board. But
So
Ian,
we'll get
Ian
that jump.
McDermott is sitting by the phone, like,
Yeah.
I'm waiting.
how can I get in on
do it.
this?
Just de-age me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm super excited for the Acolyte. That was my probably my favorite announcement, just because, I mean, you've got a queer woman running Star Wars, which just on a base level is just like, yes, but then also running Star Wars on the mythical side of things, which is my favorite. I could totally rock with pilots and ships and blasters and all that, but to me, the Force lore is my favorite stuff. So you give me, what does it say in the blurb, like emerging dark side powers, at the fall of this era, like, is this a Night Sister? I've seen that thrown around a lot because we know it's going to be a female protagonist. So is it a Night Sister? Is this like Mother Talzin but young, or like something like that, or or like, we don't know how long she could live with her sorcery and stuff.
Yeah.
It could be any number of things, but I mean, mystery thriller, like I see like, short lightsaber blades, like backstabbing and like lots of shadows, and like,
yes.
I think that this could be like really like Assassin's Creed meets like witchcraft. Like it just sounds like it's gonna be really, I mean, and even the logo has a blade slash right through
The
it.
logo is amazing. Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things that I really like about the description of most of the things that they announced, that it seems like very diverse. And it's kind of, I compare it to what happened when Captain America, the Winter Soldier came out in the Marvel universe. And that was kind of like the jump start in a sense of those films. Because up until then, like most of those Marvel films were very derivative of the superhero genre. Not to say that they were bad necessarily, but they were, they were formulaic and they were a superhero movie. And it's not until Winter Soldier came out and they did the political thriller thing that then Marvel started doing different type of things. And then with the space Guardians of the Galaxy, a space opera type of thing with Ant-Man,
that was their banner year, was like for that tone stuff. Like the fact that Winter Soldier and Guardians came out in the same summer, like, one at the beginning, one at the end, that was them saying like, watch us just do whatever, and you'll trust it because, we know we have it down. And Star Wars will always be space opera at its core. Like you're never going to get away from it ever, as long as you stick with, the Force theme and wipe transitions. Like it's always going to be a little bit of a Flash Gordon space opera. But the way that you dress it up, like a morally ambiguous character, this High Republic era toward the, I mean, if it's the final days of the High Republic, final days could be You know, that's such a broad term. Final Days of a 200-year period.
Yeah,
This could be a
could be
10-season
decades.
show of, you know, backstabbing and just, you know, a more, I'm not saying they're going to do like a Game of Thrones type show or Lord of the Rings, but given that it is their whole thing with High Republic is Knights of the Round Table,
Yeah.
always telling us how Arthurian it's going to be. This character could have a different way of speaking than we've ever seen in Star Wars. It could be very, very, very grand. Like get a bunch of theater actors in this. Like it could be really, really interesting.
For sure.
I think that idea, like, because we have to see what led to the creation of the empire at some point. Like, what was the societal background? What was going on in the psyche of the ones that were in power that eventually led to the rise of the Sith? And it kind of, I don't know, like when you mention it, it reminded me of like, oh, I always wanted like a House of Cards type of thing with Star Wars.
Right.
We can start seeing like the bits of that in the background. Like, oh, it's just all about power. Like it never was about understanding the Force. It was just about the accumulation of power, and that's what led to the fall of the Jedi.
Yeah,
I could see it.
And not that I'm saying I want it to be Plagueis, because I really don't. But the best thing about the Plagueis novel is that the Plagueis novel is a mob book. Like it's the mafia. Like that's what that story is. Of Plagueis and Palpatine is just, you know, Godfather and backstabbing and, you know, waiting for the moment to take out the old man. That way you can be the next thing. I would love it if, I mean, again, it's Star Wars, so it's always going to have a message of light wins and choices and things like that. But I really, really would love it if this character is awful. Like, I think that it would be really interesting to see a Star Wars story truly told. Because we get Maul, but even Maul, you feel bad for to a certain point. Like this could be the character who is, you know, your Walter White, where you realize like, oh, you just get worse and worse.
Yeah.
And you root for it in a way. It's like you hate the character, how it's like, but at the same time, it's like, I want to see how you devolve into this monster. Yeah. How sublime it becomes. Yeah.
It'll just be interesting just because at this point the Sith are supposed to be underground, so that's why I have a little wariness to it being Darth Plagueis in a sense, because I mean, it would be interesting if they managed to pull off a show of like just him moving in the shadows undetected all the time. But I think it would be much more interesting to see like agents of the dark side that are maybe connected tangentially to Darth Plagueis or whoever the Darth at the time is, and like moving in a more protagonist fashion, right, as opposed to in the shadows, and what they're doing to disrupt the Jedi Order in some way. Even has to do with the Jedi Order. Maybe the Jedi, you know, don't even factor into it until like only a couple of times, like I said, tangentially, not directly the whole thing. I don't know. I mean,
this is an opportunity of like, it could be so much new. Maybe not even the Sith. I mean, the Acolyte of what? You know, we know Acolytes of Beyond, but that's later. You know, we know about you know, the Knights of Ren and how Ren the Blade versus Ren the Man and the Shadow and all that stuff. But you could expand this out in a way where it's a completely new thing, and then maybe like the season finale of this thing, you know, this person fights Yoda or something like that. Someone who's there, so you get a little bit of that, like, this is still Star Wars, but also you don't know anything about this.
And that would be, now I'm thinking like the exploration of the dark side being used for a greater purpose, which will lead credence to what Anakin was in his mind striving for. Oh, I'm going to use the Sith side of the Force for the greater good, to bring balance. So it'll be interesting to now have like a character who's the other way, like, oh, I was raised within the Sith or this underground, but how can I transition my powers into the greater good? I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's a show that has like way too many possibilities.
It's too open.
In a way, and that's what's great about it. The era that it's at, since there's no stories being told yet in it, it just allows for anything. And the fact that it's not connected to the Skywalker saga just lets it have so much more freedom than any story like set in the original trilogy time or sequel time is able to have. It's just very exciting, which is in a way the opposite of how I feel about Lando. Lando was one of those announcements that for me kind of personally fell flat because
Yeah.
I see it as kind of a solo film. Not to say that the solo film was bad for me; it was serviceable. I enjoyed it, but didn't rock my boat. So to me, to kind of because it's one of those characters that I don't know. Solo
It's kind of like he
and
already served his purpose. I don't really see how much
yeah,
a
it's
standalone
like
show for him. Yeah.
because Han Solo, yeah, he's one of the main characters of the original
Mhm.
trilogy, but he's not the main character.
Right.
And he serves the purpose in the story in that role that he has. So when the whole story is about him, it just doesn't make him as compelling or interesting, I feel, as when you just explain everything about him, like Solo did. For me, it just like made Han Solo worse, personally. That I feel like this Lando show could kind of do the same thing because I think Lando serves the story better when he's in it the least. Like he was in Empire, Return of the Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, or in Rebels. I think in Rebels he was amazing.
Yeah,
Those
he was
few
great in
times that he showed up, but just making a whole story about him just seems derivative
I
and
think it's
unnecessary.
it's
it
going to be
be
an
with Dawn of
exercise
Over?
of we don't
They
know.
haven't. We don't
Oh, they
know.
haven't.
We don't.
They haven't.
We
Yeah,
don't know if it's live action or animated. We don't know.
I think it's going to be a big exercise in choosing the right story, for the reasons that you're saying. Like, I don't need it to be the backdoor Solo sequel, even though I'm down with it. Like,
Mhm.
for me, I want the backdoor Solo sequel. I would do Kira. I
Mhm.
think that's the interesting leg of that at this point. But if
The
it's
unknown, right?
yeah, exactly. But if it's Billy D telling stories to Jana, and then we get both actors, like that could be really special if you did that right. But the other thing I've been thinking
Yes.
about is in Rise of Skywalker, he casually says that him and Luke were hunting Ochi of Bestoon.
Mm-hmm.
What if it's, we think that that's a Luke Skywalker story? What if that's a Lando story? And Luke is in it a little bit, but it's Lando being roped into this Sith thing, like in the Charles Soule Lando comic. So
Mm.
it's all going to be about picking the right thing. I forget the gentleman's name, but the guy who runs Dear White People is going to be running this as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
So it's cool again on a representation level to have it,
Yeah.
but it's going to be, you need some like oomph in this, like whatever it is. It can't just be smooth talking and playing sabak, even though it's cool.
It is cool.
And like, let's be clear, I'm
But how
gonna
much
watch
of
it.
that can you? Oh
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
like-
we're gonna watch everything. We're watching
Yeah, exactly.
everything. Who are we
Yeah,
kidding?
it's
Come
like-
on. Yeah.
But yeah, you want definitely to get into the soul of this guy in a certain way.
Mm.
If you're gonna do it.
'Cause
I'm
for me,
actually. You think it falls flat?
I don't know. What were you gonna say?
Oh,
I already
because I was
said it,
gonna
so-
go into another show, so you can go. You can keep talking
Oh,
about
no, no.
Lando.
Which? That's how I was gonna switch shows too.
I'm really excited about Visions. Actually,
Visions.
I am a
seems
huge
interesting.
anime fan, and then to have independent directors do an episode each
Mhm.
and have it seen through the lens of a different cultures, like
Yeah.
how Japanese people see Star Wars, and then interpret it and animate it in anime style, which is just fantastic. And I think it lends itself very well to Star Wars lore.
Yeah.
And Japanese tend to be very into the mythos and the meat of stories as well. So I think they could be really, really special. So I was really excited to hear about that.
I'm not sure. Does anyone know, like, if the show? Because I didn't really understand what they're going to do exactly. If they were just gonna like reinterpret stories that have already been done through like the anime lens, or if they're just gonna tell new and original stories through these.
Yeah, they didn't clarify,
directors.
Yeah.
but just to echo what you just said, I mean, the way that their culture like really embraces, the mythological and just the fantastical. I mean, it would be cool to see it reinterpreted. Like, I'm not gonna not watch that.
Mhm.
Same with like Galaxy of Adventures, like seeing these classic moments in an animated style, but taking that into anime could be really cool. But I would love it if it was like, give these anime creators the ability to pick and choose from the weird pot of Star Wars. Like if you get, because it says they're not even just gonna be episodes, it's gonna be 10 short films.
Yeah.
So it's like short films, like these could be like 30 to 40 minutes long. I would love it if it was the Bendu anime short film, Mortis the anime short film, like give me like the weird like Dathomir anime short film. All of that stuff could be like so fascinating. And like, yeah, you want to battle, you maybe want to race, like that could be cool. Like a Coruscant race, like a la like Akira, like that could be really cool. But yeah, I mean, I just think it's cool that they had this thought of like how does this even come up in the room? I don't know, but it's great. I mean, I would not be surprised if it was Dave Filoni who said like, what if we got a bunch of anime guys? And they probably all rolled their eyes like, oh, there comes Dave with his anime. But
go back to Avatar, Dave.
Now that you mention it, it kind of went a little bit off. Like one of my brothers is a huge My Hero fan, and apparently Disney has been for the longest time trying to buy that franchise. And the creator is like, nope, I'm not, because he's afraid that Disney's gonna completely take it over and change what the story's about. So this could be their way of like, oh, okay, I can't buy that, then I'll just do an anime and see if I'm good at it.
They're gonna Lion King it the same way. What was the other film that Disney basically stole Lion King from? Kimba the White Lion or something like that.
Kimba the White Lion, or
they couldn't get it. It's like, well, we're doing it our way.
Well, it's a huge Disney. Market. It is a huge market, and that just as the Latinos are a huge market. There's so many cultural markets that have been untapped just to maintain this, like, ooh, this is what entertainment should be like. But we are missing so much. So maybe this could be the entryway of like, oh, there's a lot more than we can explore from different lenses. And even if it's just like, I kind of like that idea of like, you said like Lando talking about like the stories. Yeah. What if it's people from other planets retelling, oh, this is the Star Wars I heard about, and then it's like way more fantastical or like greedier. Like it'll be interesting.
I wonder if like this approach with Visions and the Taika Waititi film, if this is kind of Lucasfilm kind of course correcting or apologizing in a way with what happened with Solo and Phil Lord and Miller after firing them for them getting too creative and doing their own thing. This is them being like, okay, no, now we told directors they could do whatever they want and we didn't let them back then, but now we're gonna do it right. And just
here's the thing. I mean, the fact of the matter about that is Kathleen Kennedy, who I love, can look at her experience running Lucasfilm and say one thing for sure. The only person that she has never had a professional conflict with is Rian Johnson, who she let do whatever he wanted. And that faith that she loves him. Like, we don't hear a lot about him because he did Knives Out and we're not sure if he's ever going to do his thing and whatever. But if you go back to clips of like the promotion for that movie, she said he's going to be the next Spielberg. Like, she was like, this guy's going to be a great. Like, she was so high on him and they had no problems. And it was because she let him work. And I think that maybe she got trepidatious for whatever reasons. Lawrence Kasdan had a lot to do with it on Solo. And, we'll never know the truth. But yeah, I mean, this is, and we'll get to Patty Jenkins and you mentioned Taika. This is all about what's your vision. Leslie Headland with Acolyte, what's your vision? Dave Filoni, executive producing and writing Ahsoka is obviously, what's your vision? That's basically his daughter.
Yeah.
So it's I mean, this is going to be the era of try everything. Do I think that this is going to be Star Wars forever? No. There will come a day when they call Daisy Ridley and Oscar Isaac and John Boyega and they do episode 10. And if you think that's not going to happen, you're crazy, because it will.
10 years. It's a rolling clock.
It's going to happen. 1 year in. But we're going to have fun along the way.
Yeah.
On that, I wanted to ask, because I'm not sure, maybe since you were mentioning that Rian Johnson didn't really have conflicts with Kathy Kennedy, as far as we know. Do we know if JJ had, at least in episode 7, if he had conflicts with her while production of that movie was going forward?
7, like I don't know if like her and JJ had like fights, but there were definitely things that were little tiffs for sure. Like the initial moving of Star Wars from May to December was a JJ thing. JJ getting final cut on the movie. There were certain things that were tumultuous a little bit, with the writing of that movie. We know that it was originally Michael Arndt, who did Little Miss Sunshine and Toy Story 3, who ended up leaving because he wanted more time. And so there was little push and pulls that happened because JJ Abrams is not just a director, he's also a studio in his own right. So Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker are the only co-productions in Star Wars. They are Bad Robot movies as well as Lucasfilm movies, which is why they leak the most. Because Bad Robot doesn't have the same security that Lucasfilm and Disney have.
Like Bad Robot for their security.
Exactly. It's the bad. I mean, it's the Bad Robot of it all. And like, no disrespect to them, they make good stuff, but it's a pattern. So JJ comes with a little bit of like, what's the best way to put this? The best way to put this is in the lens of Rian Johnson. Rian Johnson gets a Star Wars job. He moves to San Francisco, gets a place up there, is checking in with them all the time, goes into the office, like really immerses it and becomes like Lucasfilm fam for a while. Not that JJ has any problems with anybody or bad blood. He's one of the nicest guys ever. I mean, we've seen what he does with his money this year, with everything he's done for Black Lives Matter and setting up these initiatives within the company. Like, seems like a great dude. Everyone has the best things to say about him. Daisy really cried when he came back to Rise of Skywalker, and John Boyega just the other day was saying how much he supports him. So it's not a character thing at all. But the way he works is, I'm JJ Abrams. Like, I'm doing my thing over here. I'm not moving. I'll do my stuff at the Bad Robot office and I'll call you. Why is it a Wayfinder, not a holocron? Because JJ felt like doing a Wayfinder. Like, he's not calling Pablo like, what would you call this thing? Is there something that we can use? He's not doing that. Whereas Ryan and Pablo, like, they hang out. Like, I'm pretty sure that they've posted about like going to like some event together. Like, so it's a differing mentality where JJ Abrams he's here. That's why Disney, Apple, and Warner Brothers were bidding on his company. So it's a little different. That was a very long way of saying that I think there's going to be less company guys going forward. Like, they're not interested. Like, Patty Jenkins doesn't have Patty Jenkins Incorporated. There's going to be less of that. It's going to be, come be part of the family, not like get this mega huge, it's not going to be that. You're never going to see the Nolan Star Wars movie because Nolan runs Syncope and they don't want to do that anymore.
And I don't think we want to see Christopher Nolan
Star
Wars.
I don't either. No.
I don't.
He already gave us Interstellar. I love that movie.
I'm good with it. Good with it.
Speaking then of Patty Jenkins, what's everyone's view then on Rogue Squadron? Because I know I was very excited when that was announced, but that means we're going to have 2 Star Wars movies that have Rogue in the title. I hope people don't get confused thinking Rogue Squadron is going to be Rogue One 2.
I think that's intentional, though. I really do. I think that because they could have done anything, like they're not retelling the story of those books or those games. They've already said that. So you could have called it Phoenix Squadron. You could have called it Red Squadron. You could have called it, you could have done Alphabet or Anvil, anything that you've already used. I think they pick Rogue because that was $1 billion movie that told audiences not everything will be the main thing. Not everything will be Skywalkers and swords and magic. So I think that they put that in there to get like people like, our parents that maybe aren't nerds, like to be like, Rogue, like, oh, so this is going to be one of those ones. Like, I think it's like a marketing move. But yeah, if you guys want to jump in and talk about sort of like what you thought of the whole thing.
Well, and then bringing in Patty Jenkins, I think, was a genius move, honestly. And I loved the video that she posted on Twitter explaining like why she got into Star Wars, and she's always wanted to do a fighter pilot movie and couldn't do it. And then you see her with the jumpsuit and the helmet and everything. And I thought it was just such a magical touch. and you can already see that she's invested in it, that she's a fan, and I think we have a lot to look forward to there, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seems based on on the production of that teaser that she shot that there's, I mean, and I think this is the same with most things that are announced, that there have been in development for a while already. But I don't know, the Patty Jenkins stuff just looks like it's way more cooked than we are led to believe. I feel.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not saying that they've necessarily shot anything, but I don't know. It feels like it's closer to reality than Taika's film.
Yes.
At this moment,
where Taika is working on a script. I think the Rogue Squadron script is done, and I think that there's art maybe being drawn up, and it feels like, because Lucasfilm, what this event was Lucasfilm saying, look, we know we've half-cocked announced things in the past. We know that we've gotten a little excited with that send button, and we've told you some things that maybe didn't play out, like our Boba Fett movie. We apologize. Now he's in Mando. But this was them saying, yeah, exactly. Benioff and Weiss is the perfect example. They announced those guys when they were on top of the world. Nothing could have touched them at that time. Then stuff happened. And so what we're seeing now is them saying, everything we announced to you, we have a logo, we have a team, we're saying it to the shareholders, not just in an online thing. This is not just StarWars.com announcement. We're saying it to the shareholders on video. In the Patty Jenkins thing, my whole thing was when it was, because you're following on Twitter and everything. I wasn't able to watch the call, so I'm following on Twitter. I see Patty Jenkins, and I'm like, whoa, that's huge. For representation, but also just for a blockbuster choice. You got a hitter, somebody who is coming off of a huge phenomenon. But also, my second reaction was, oh, we're doing a pilot thing. That's fine, because that, like I said, that's not really my area.
Yeah.
However, then I saw the video, and the fact that it was again, Soul, the fact that she is there skating, and she explains to you why a pilot movie, and it got me in exactly what I've been talking about this whole time, where I was like, oh, this is gonna be good.
And it wasn't just a thing of her recording herself at home.
No,
saying hey, I'm excited
exactly.
for this.
It wasn't
no, we're making a big deal of it.
She didn't say oh, Star Wars has always been the trench run. That would have been fine. But it was that she was let me tell you about my father who died, and how I felt as a little girl, and how the pain, but also the thrills. And she put that all out there and was so personal with us that I was I'll follow you anywhere, lady. I'll follow you anywhere now.
You enlisted me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's how I want all announcements to be now. When Taika's comes out, I want it to be the Taika version of that announcement. Something so ridiculous of him just explaining his idea.
That's one of those weird things, though, because I think Taika obviously is a very gifted filmmaker, and I really enjoy all the films of his that I've seen, and his Mando episode was fantastic. That being said, though, I know he's a quirky guy. So, and not to say that Star Wars can't get quirky and weird, but since we haven't really seen anything like that, I don't know, how it would be received if he does something that's totally left field and just his own version of Star Wars. And it might work because it's what he did for Thor Ragnarok, and it worked because Dark World was just dreadful, and he just did a 180 towards what that movie was, and it might work for Star Wars, but for the time being, I'm cautious.
My thing with Taika is you look at that logo that we saw from
they didn't
even release. Yeah, they didn't release that. It's just the photo of it sort of ended up, and I think that what Taika was not in Ragnarok, but what is in a lot of his work is happy, sad tone, and also children. And Star Wars has never done Ahsoka, but she had Anakin and Obi-Wan there. Yeah. Star Wars has not done the thing that was led by a kid. I think that my prediction for Taika is that this is going to be the Goonies or Stranger Things or Stand By Me.
Wow.
By way of Star Wars. He always puts kids in a thing, and Jojo Rabbit and Boy and Hunt for the Wilder People. I think that it's going to be maybe like one adult characters, maybe similar to Mandalorian, where it's like father and son, or mother daughter, or a whole family. But I think that this will be a big like coming of age. Like we've never had something like that, and maybe there's war happening around it, and that is how this person comes of age. But I think it's going to be like really, really sweet, like emotionally like warm and sweet. I think that that's how they make his unique.
Interesting. Oh, that's it.
Yeah, it'll be a good refresher also, since everything has been like, oh, it's the mythical thing going on, but how does it affect? Yeah, that'll be really good.
Yeah, and it might actually not be such a terrible thing to have something that's a little lighter, since all the stuff that we seem to be getting is kind of on the heavier, serious side. Something that's kind of a little more uplifting, and it might be a good palate cleanser.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree.
Which leads us to, I think, one of the most anticipated Star Wars show in the history of Star Wars shows, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
And that bombshell revelation that everyone wanted, but no one knew if Lucasfilm would have the huevos rancheros to pull the trigger on and do that casting. Oh yeah, and cast the man, the myth, the legend, Hayden Christensen. I never thought I would be.
I couldn't believe it. I thought it was fake news when it first came out. Really, I was like, no.
I was like, what am I? I think my initial tweet was, what are these words like in this that I'm reading? Like I couldn't believe that. Like I was getting texts about it, and I was like, Hayden, what do you mean Hayden back? Like what's happening? And then I was like Vader, and then it immediately just like synapses start firing. Like what?
That's a red herring in my mind.
You think what? Do you think that Vader will be maybe like one scene, or that it's
no? I'm not saying that he won't play Vader. I'm saying that they're saying it's just Vader. So
you think it'll be like Clone Wars flashback, or
because that's my thing. Because for
like
Rogue
flashbacks?
Rogue One, they already had two dudes playing Vader.
Yeah.
So why would you bring Hayden Christensen to put a mask on his face?
Especially when it's not his voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's either going to be James Earl Jones or forbid. I don't want this at all, but forbid James Earl Jones either cannot do it or is just incapacitated for any reason. They have other Vader voices on the payroll, like what's his name, Scott Lawrence, I think, from Resistance.
Yeah, from Resistance.
That he
does a
also,
good Vader voice.
His Vader's very good. Yeah, so they have him available. So there's no reason to get Hayden
unless you're gonna show his face.
Yeah,
or you're gonna see his face. It has to be his beautiful face.
Or if it's gonna be like
Clone Wars
or like Rebels,
armor.
like break the mask, like when Ahsoka fought him,
see Hayden,
and then it'll be like the "What have I become?" and put his voice.
There's going to be flashbacks. There has to be.
Let me ask you a question, all three of you, because I struggle with it. For years, since we heard rumors of an Obi-Wan movie or whatever it was going to be, I insisted that I did not want them to meet in the 19 years because I thought that the Death Star was the first time. And then, other big people in the Star Wars community, people would say, well, there's that line in Jedi of Obi-Wan once thought as you did to Luke. And you can interpret that as Mustafar, like him showing up there. He says, I will do what I must. But at first he's trying to talk some sense into him. So there's always been wiggle room of what does that mean? And it wasn't until this announcement that I really had to think about it. And I had to let go of what I thought and what I want and start to really think about the story. And there is, I think, some disparity between you were my brother, Anakin, I loved you. And then we get to Dagobah and Ghost Obi-Wan's like, yeah, you got to kill him. Sorry. Like, what is that? How did he get there? So I think that now I'm warming up to when Kathleen Kennedy said the rematch of the century, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want that. I thought that their fight thought that was the first time they'd seen each other. But now I'm starting to think like, what if Obi 10 years later is like, I can't just sit here anymore. Like I can do it. I can turn him and then you can't so what do you guys feel about that? Did you struggled with it at all?
What do you think, Nani?
I was very purist at first too. Like I want them for that meeting in A New Hope to be the first time that they see each other. But there is a little bit of disconnect there. And especially, you know, once you get really into the relationship of Anakin with Obi-Wan through the Star Wars animated series in Clone Wars, and you see how they really become brothers, because there was something about their relationship in the movies that was hard for me to buy, because half the time they treat him like a complete child, and then at the very end it's like, you're my brother, like his equal, his peer. And there was something about it that was hard to buy. But once you watch the animated series and see how their relationship evolves, see how they get to that point that they do consider themselves brothers and best friends, then you can see how much it hurts him to leave Anakin like that. But when he speaks to Luke about who Darth Vader is, he speaks about this monster already. So if he wouldn't have met him as Darth Vader once he completely changed, I think there's a disconnect there. Because when he left him to die, I mean, there was still affection there and regret. But, you know, if he had met him later on, was unable to turn him and was unable to see any good in him, then it would make more sense what he says to Luke, that he was killed by an old apprentice of mine called Darth Vader.
That's the thing. Yeah, like it makes the lies. It's not just like, damn, Obi, like you had 19 years and that's the best you could come up with. Like now we're adding even more trauma of like he is now thinking like, I tried, kid. Like it's not.
And there's nothing there.
Yeah.
What if they do kind of like Rey and Kylo, where there's like force there? We see them in the same place, but they're not there physically. It's a force projection. So Vader wouldn't project Vader as a masked version, because that's just a burned body, but will present kind of like how we saw at the end of Return of the Jedi, a Vader that still sees themselves as the body of Hayden Christensen. So we can see that reaching out through the Force, because we know, at least from Empire, that Vader meditates and it sits in that chamber for hours on time. I can definitely see Obi-Wan for hours on time meditating in the desert and meeting in this sort of like world between worlds or Force, where they actually, you see Obi-Wan trying to reach out and how Anakin keeps devolving into Vader, ergo getting to the point of like, it's a hopeless case. I've tried for 20 years to make it happen. It didn't happen.
Yeah, I like all that. And I love, you know, even hearkening to the Charles Soule Vader run, where Vader has his just pitiful, sad vision of what it would be like to be redeemed, where he's thinking about it and he falls on his knees in the desert to Obi-Wan. And, you know, you get like the Force vision of what he actually is like in terms of the Force. And there's no limbs, because obviously there's no limbs. So it's just this dark husk with no arms, no legs, you know, in the Force, and it's like swirling dark energy. And, you know, with like just the little Force butterflies around him, like the flickers of light, you could play with all of that stuff. And if it's, you know, Obi-Wan meditating and he sees Anakin in a vision, and that's what makes him think like, oh, he's still there. I will say, big prediction time, huge mega prediction time. Natalie Portman in some capacity, somehow, vision something, because out of nowhere, last week she did an autograph session for Star Wars where you could send merchandise to her, and that never happens. And they were like, this is a one-time thing, and you know, we got Natalie Portman. I'm like, why? Like,
Spider sense is tingling.
I started
Well,
being like,
it's just like Ewan. When was it? I think it was last year. He he has signed for Tops and whatnot, but he had never done convention appearances or had send-ins and autograph stuff. But was it for Ace? I think the Ace convention in Boston or something. He was going to do his first appearance there. So people started wondering, like, oh, does this mean he's going to...
And then he showed up at the solo premiere, like, shortly thereafter.
Exactly. And then it was confirmed, the Obi-Wan show.
And when, before Celebration, Ian McDermott and Hayden were going to do a Palpatine Anakin panel. at some con, just a regular con, and they were just going to be on stage talking like they had before. And then like the weekend of, Lucasfilm pulled it
canceled that. Yeah.
because Palpatine was gonna. They were afraid that it would come up, that one of them would say like something about 9, and then they wanted to have their roll it again, and they didn't want that to be ruined.
Yeah.
But I'm if it's Ewan meditating or something, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe he's meditating and he sees Padme, and
I think more likely than Padme is Qui-Gon Jinn. I think Liam Neeson.
Oh God!
Qui-Gon.
Please.
If they do Qui-Gon Jinn, I am going to explode.
He has
oh
to.
My
he
God.
has.
What if it's like you harken back to Phantom Menace when he says like train the boy? Like, what if this time it's like save the boy? Like he sees a vision of him, and then like that's what makes him try one more time. Man,
kind of like I failed you, master. I'll try once again.
I think Anakin might have visions of Padme, but Obi-Wan's going to commune with Qui-Gon Jinn.
See, people think that this show is going to be like, oh, it's it's going to show us the transformation. Like exactly, like they think it's going to be like, how do we get to old Ben? Nah, this ain't about that. This is prequels part 2.
Like, this is part 2. Yes, that would be amazing.
Or why not both?
Yeah.
A little bit of both.
I want him to be so grayed up too. Like I want it to be like really like give him the long robe now.
Weathered.
Here's my last question about this, like as if I'm hosting. I have my inkling is you can't help yourself sometimes. How do you think they're gonna handle the lightsaber? Do you think it's like only once in the whole season?
Like Anakin's lightsaber in the hut, you mean?
No, Obi. Like, does he draw it like multiple times, or is it going to be like? Because if I'm making it, if I'm Deborah Chow, which by the way, so excited for it to be Deborah Chow, I would give you maybe twice. Do you see the saber? Maybe.
I think you'll see the hilt for sure, more than once. But I think he'll be very judicial with his usage, because obviously, if he uses it, he'll out himself as a Jedi, and people will be hunting him. So I think he'll use it maybe like once in a desperate need at some point, because he has to defend somebody, either baby Luke or some other creature in Tatooine or something, and the other times when he fights Vader. Those are the only times.
Yeah.
Maybe he double wields lightsabers, because my headcanon is still that he has Qui-Gon Jinn's lightsaber in the hut. Which is still I still stand by this hill, and I'll die on it until Lucasfilm denies it. The Kyber crystal and Luke Skywalker's green lightsaber is Qui-Gon Jinn's.
Qui-Gon Jinn. I want it to. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I cry every time. Like
we'll see that be part of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You'll see Qui-Gon Jinn's lightsaber in his
got
gut.
it. Well, because I love the idea that we know from a certain point of view that the blanket Yoda sleeps in and dies in is Qui-Gon's cloak. That they revealed that in that story. So if it was like a flashback to like Obi and Yoda splitting up Qui-Gon's possessions, like you take this, like, we both miss him. Gotta tell you, I love that character. I was emotional in Rise of Skywalker when we heard the voices, but it was Kanan and it was Qui-Gon that got me the hardest. Of every Jedi that ever lived lives in you. I was like, like you're so true. Like, it was amazing.
Qui-Gon is such a great character.
He's.
Qui-Gon.
I mean, if he came back for that silly little cameo in Rise of Skywalker, and he came back to do voices for Clone Wars, there's no reason why Disney can't give him some of that Disney money and be like, hey, come back, come here for 5 minutes in the volume, shoot your stuff, and and here's a couple.
We'll give you the Harrison Ford treatment.
We'll give you. He's not at Harrison Ford level yet, though. So he'll get like maybe 2/3 of a Harrison.
2/3 of Harrison Ford.
Terrible.
That's great.
Let's see, but that's
I want to say that even though it's not Star Wars, the Children of Bone and Blood, I'm excited for that. Blood and Bone.
I had never heard of that book. I think Nani, you mentioned that you had almost read that book.
I thought I had. As soon as I heard the title, I was like, I've definitely read this. But then I went into my Kindle library and like my actual library, and I couldn't find it. So I'm pretty sure I haven't read it. But now I'm really interested in reading it. So
My question is, should we read it before or after?
I bought it just because.
Of course you did.
Well, I kind of read over like the very synopsis and the fact that they mention orishas as part of which is the it brings back the other culture, the African culture, and their mythology of like it's the cradle of life. That's where humanity came from. Yeah. Clearly, we have to learn from the mythology that made humans.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and it also ties in a lot to Puerto Rico and like Caribbean cultures, because it's the orishas that get intertwined with the saints, and you get Santeria, which is like all of this that has been whitewashed as, oh, it's just magic or trickery. Right. And then we're finally getting into a story that the main source of magic and mythology is based on the African culture. It just got me really excited.
No, true. And that's going to be Rick Famuyiwa is attached to that, I believe. So again, you're keeping it in the family and using Mandalorian to sort of
I want to be part of that family.
Audition some talent. My Mandalorian episode would be bad, but I would have so much fun.
Yeah, I'll work.
Why
work
would
with
it be
everybody.
bad?
Yeah. It wouldn't be bad. It would be disappointing for people. Let me tell you, my episode of Mandalorian would be the one that everyone immediately tweet is filler, because they would be like, all right, so do you want like Moff Gideon? Like what are you thinking? I'm like, nah. Like, we're just gonna have Mandalorian show up at that same club from Attack of the Clones, the Outlander club, and he's gonna be hanging out there. He's still gonna be there, but he's gonna be like running it now because he went home and rethought his life, and he's gonna be an entrepreneur.
Retired. It's a retired Mando.
Yeah, and I was like, I want the most no action, just all dialogue, soulful, just heady trip. Maybe Mando and Grief, they get a get a thing of spice.
Yeah,
they just get
a weekend in Vegas.
And yeah,
or
the Hangover Star Wars version, basically.
Yeah,
or like Boba and like then getting onto like a spice stream and just talking about life.
Oh yeah, like Boba's like, bro, let me tell you, like, I'm a clone, man. I'm a clone. Like that's why I said that thing about my face, because everybody looks like me.
And Mando's like,
it's like, do you know how frustrating it is to look exactly the same?
Yeah,
somebody you don't know.
My father's me, and I am him. Like, what the hell are you talking about, bro?
Din's like, what's a clone?
Din is so clueless about the world.
Yeah, then it's completely.
Din is just so lost.
Just looking at him like.
It's not his fault, though. It's not his fault.
I know.
People have been ganging up on him a lot.
But he was indoctrinated in a cult. It's not his fault.
It's not his fault.
So I mean, it's not his fault, but still, it's kind of funny that he's always so completely lost.
Yes,
he's dealing with things very well. I think for
I think
for a zealot,
considering everything that's been thrown at him.
Considering everything, yes.
Exactly. For being raised by a zealot, he's very open-minded. He doesn't, he didn't kill like any of those men, like Bo-Katan or Boba. He's like, no, like, hey, I'm a zealot, but live and let live, baby. It's like, whoa, that's very open-minded of you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So kudos to him. I think he's a goddamn hero in my book.
I agree.
He lost his ship. He lost his child. He's losing his whole identity when he saw Bo-Katan. He's dealing with a lot of stuff.
This is Din Djarin's No Good, Very Bad Day, or whatever that
very extended
that movie
bad day.
Yep. Like, it's just having a hard life.
And we know that there's no space psychologist or psychiatrist.
That's not a thing.
If there had been, Anakin and Ben Solo would have been fine.
Yeah. Yep. Only reaching out to your friends and celebrating mental health can prevent empires. That's what we've learned.
Very true. It's very, very true.
That's great.
I think we hit a good point. I think we talked basically about most of the things we set out to for today. I don't think we'll have time tonight for like a second part of our discussion. But I don't know if we
want to do an hour on Droid Story.
Troy stories. Yes.
I don't know. I don't know if that was serious or not.
No. It was not serious. I was just trying to think of anything that we didn't hit. And I think it was only
we didn't really
hit
talk
Willow.
about Bad Batch.
Oh yeah. Willow, excited.
Mm-hmm.
Bad Batch, excited. Young Fennec Shand.
Check.
Bad Batch was interesting because when we already knew about the show, so like it wasn't new news. But I remember not being too thrilled the first time around when they announced it because I'm like, oh, okay, more of something that I don't need to know more about. But all of a sudden, with that trailer, I was like, oh, okay, the same animation style as Clone Wars, Fennec Shan's in it. I was like, okay, my body is ready, and it's coming out soon, so that's a good thing. We won't have to suffer through a long time without any Star Wars content. So
yeah, and I think that again, it's without making this another hour. Not that I wouldn't do it, but just for the sake of everyone's life. But it's the one thing that when I covered this on my show, my whole thing was Clone Wars, Rebels, and Resistance all have one thing in common, aside from being animated and being Dave things, is that none of them really stuck to the base of what they could have been. So the Clone Wars was pitched as the Clone Wars, but it ended up being so much more. It ended up being the Ahsoka Tano story, the the real creation of Darth Vader, an expansion of Force mythology. Rebels, when it was first announced, everyone thought, oh, this is going to be, I don't know, some troopers, like some random rebels, and then we'll get to New Hope, and it ended up being so much more. Resistance, we thought would be, oh, this is going to be like sort of what Leia was building. It ended up being this wacky, slapsticky family, show about these disparate weirdos. Like probably the most off to the side. Like everyone in Resistance is a C level character, on purpose. Everyone there is like the 8th action figure that comes out in a line. Like that's what that whole show is.
BB-8 was the star of that show.
BB-8 was like the marquee player for like a whole season. So when you hear the Bad Batch, what is the Bad Batch? We know what they are, but what are they? And I think that what the point the show is going to be making is this is after Revenge of the Sith. Isn't everybody that doesn't just fall in line the Bad Batch? Like that's been the thought that's been going through my mind. So like, yeah, it's these 5 guys, but it's also Bo-Katan, Ahsoka Tano, Saw Gerrera, Enfys Nest, Lando Calrissian, Cham Syndulla, everybody that didn't just play ball. Beckett. That's why I love that Fennec Shan's in the trailer, because it tells you like everyone that lives a life that is not exactly what Palpatine wants could be explored in this show. Like that's, you're all freaks now. And the Bad Batch were only freaks and experiment guys or mutants. They were only like considered wrong in comparison to the Grand Army of the Republic. Now the Grand Army of the Republic's gone. You're not special anymore. Yep. You're just 5 dudes. You know how many people in Star Wars are good shots or no technology or have super strength? You're not special anymore. So now what happens? So that's what I'm excited about for that show, because it's just going to be Clone Wars season 8. It's just going to be it's just another expansion, just a back door into so much more.
8.5
expansion. Expansion is a good way to put it. It's the expansion pack, the bonus season. That. And I think with that, we're good. I think to wrap up things for tonight, unless anyone had any other thing they'd like to share before we wrap up our very fun conversation.
I think I'm good.
I think we're all cautiously excited and optimistic about the future.
Very much so. Yeah. Alden, so where can people find you?
So you can follow me personally at AB_Strider on Twitter, on Instagram at A.D.Strider, and then the show Ahch-To Radio is everywhere you get your podcasts. AHCHTO Radio, Apple, Stitcher, Anchor, Spotify, Google, all those places. I don't even really know. Like I really don't even know. I don't handle that.
Just upload.
It just happens. Yeah, it just kind of happens. So you can follow the show there. Let me know how you're feeling. We talk Star Wars and talk about it all the time on Twitter. You can hit me up with really anything. And I guess the only thing in the way of like stuff coming up is I just finalized some designs for the Star Wars meets Hamilton shirt design line that I'm doing. So that'll be coming out super soon.
Very cool.
Keep an eye out for that one. And I think with that, we are good for today until our next episode. So, Nani, want to sign us out?
Thanks for watching, everybody, and joining us. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, and go to TeePublic. Look at Goose's awesome shirt. We have some more cool stuff, so check it out. Okay, so I think with that, thank you so much for coming on with us, Alden. This was really fun. I loved a lot of the perspectives on the show. I hadn't thought about certain points of view, and I'm even more excited now, actually, for all the content that is coming. So thank you so much. And with that, continue to watch us.
May the force be with you.
May the force be with you. Bye.